Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. You guys sent in a really interesting episode from Speak Up with Marco and Erica a while back about families and how to talk about them in English. And I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, you know what I really liked about their approach with this topic? They started by just acknowledging that everyone has a family and, families come with all kinds of experiences. And I think it's a really smart way to connect with their listeners from the start.
Yeah, I really like how they jump right into like the practical stuff, like a basic family terms.
Right.
They reminded listeners about words like parents, siblings, cousins, grandparents, all of which are like the essential, building blocks of any conversation about family.
Yeah, it's true. And sometimes it's easy to overlook those basics when we're thinking about, complex topics. But you're totally right. Those terms are the foundation. You can't tell a good family story without mastering them first.
And then they get to the really fun part, where they encourage listeners to use vivid adjectives to really make their family descriptions come alive.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
So instead of just saying, my brother is tall, you could say, my brother's this towering giant with a heart of gold.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, using descriptive language like that really helps the listener picture your family, and it makes those descriptions so much more interesting.
I love how Marco describes his brother as his polar opposite, organized and bookish, but also like his best friend. It makes you wonder, how can two people be so different but still be so close?
That is such a good point. It's a great example of how sometimes, those contrasting personalities can actually make a relationship stronger.
It makes you think about your own family. Like, are there any relationships like that where opposites attract?
For sure.
And then there's Erica's description of her grandmother as the glue that holds the family together.
Oh, yeah.
She talks about these like heartwarming Sunday dinners at her grandma's house with
Yeah.
everyone gathered around the table, and it just paints such a vivid picture.
Yeah, and you know what it reminds us of? That food and traditions are such powerful things.
It really is.
They can really bond families together and give them that sense of history and, like they're really connected.
Everyone has that one person who brings everyone together, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, Marco and Erica, they offer some other fantastic general tips for describing family members, like using adjectives like hilarious or a real joker for someone who's funny or, always there for me, to describe someone who's really supportive. And, listening to them talk, it really got me thinking about the words I would use to describe my own family.
That's such a great exercise for our listeners, too. What adjectives would you use to describe the people in your family? It's a cool way to think about what makes them special.
What makes them unique?
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about describing family members, but you know what's even better?
What's that?
Family stories.
Oh, absolutely.
Those hilarious little moments that every family has.
Every family's got them.
And Marco and Erica, they share some real gems in this episode. It's like a masterclass in storytelling.
Yeah, for sure.
Marco's story about a camping trip gone wrong. I mean, I was just dying.
Oh, tell me about it.
His mom packed like restaurant-level food for this camping trip.
Oh, no.
Can you even imagine?
Wow.
They ended up giving up on cooking over the campfire and just finding a diner.
Oh, that's amazing. It just goes to show, even a simple event can become this like hilarious anecdote if you tell it the right way.
Absolutely.
And it really highlights that, all families have these quirks,
Yeah.
these little things that make them so unique and so lovable.
Totally. Like we can all relate to having a family member who, their efforts to help sometimes go hilariously wrong.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then Erica shares a classic, her dad repeating the same embarrassing stories over and over again.
I've been there.
Parent repeat mode.
So true. I think we all have at least one parent who does that. It's funny, when you're a kid, it's like, oh my gosh, are you serious? You're telling that story again? But then later on, you realize it's kind of their way of passing down family history, and, it becomes almost endearing.
It's so true. Those little quirks that used to annoy us, like when we're kids,
Yeah.
they somehow become endearing over time and a part of what makes a family special.
Right.
What are some of those stories in your family that get told over and over, even though everybody knows them by heart?
I mean, it's worth thinking about, right? Like, what are those little things that define your family?
So we've talked about all the laughs, but of course, family life isn't always sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, that's true.
Marco and Erica, they also acknowledge that disagreements are totally normal in families.
Right.
Even the closest families have conflicts. And they give some really helpful phrases for navigating those tricky conversations respectfully.
Yeah, they talk about things like saying, I understand your point, or can we agree to disagree?
Right.
which are so valuable, especially for someone learning English.
Absolutely.
But honestly, they're good reminders for all of us, you
Yeah.
know, because it shows that you can disagree with someone without, being disagreeable.
Right. It's about finding that balance between expressing your own perspective and still respecting the other person's feelings.
Exactly. And that's so important for any relationship, really, not just family.
The episode also gets into, how to talk about your family in different social situations.
Well, right.
Like what about job interviews or
Yeah.
casual conversations or even first dates?
It's like they're giving you this toolkit for navigating all these different scenarios.
You might talk about your family values during a job interview or share a funny anecdote to break the ice in a casual setting.
And, they really emphasize that family is this universal topic that everyone can relate to no matter where they come from,
Yeah.
which is so true, right?
It's a good reminder that even though families look different around the world, those underlying emotions, those feelings of love and loyalty and support and, yes, sometimes frustration, those are all universal.
I love how Marco says, embrace your personality and have fun when you're sharing family stories.
Oh, yeah. Don't be afraid to be real and honest and let your unique voice come through.
Be authentic.
Yeah.
Sharing those stories, even the embarrassing ones, is part of what makes you you. What stands out to you as like the most important takeaway from the episode so far?
For me, it's the idea that language is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's how we connect. Like when we share our family stories, whether they're funny or heartwarming, it helps us connect with others in such a meaningful way.
It's amazing how these family stories have this power to connect us, even when our families are totally different. Now that we've gone through all these tips from Marco and Erica, is there like one story you're just dying to tell?
Ooh, that's a good question. What about you? Anything come to mind? Maybe something funny or heartwarming or even a little embarrassing. I mean, those personal stories are such great conversation starters, don't you think?
Totally. And, thinking back to what Erica said about, expanding our vocabulary, I'm realizing how much more interesting our stories can be when we use more than just basic adjectives. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Instead of just saying, my aunt's nice, you could talk about her warm smile or the way she makes you feel so welcome. It's those little details that really make a story come alive.
It's like she's challenging us to become better storytellers. This whole deep dive has really got me thinking about how important family stories are, not just for learning a language, but for understanding ourselves and the people around us.
It's so true. Family is like its own language, full of laughter and love and those little moments that make up a life. And when we share those stories, it helps us connect with others in a way that goes beyond words.
And it doesn't matter where we come from or what language we speak, so keep those family stories coming, everybody. You never know. You might just inspire the next great podcast episode.
Or deep dive.
Or deep dive. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.